Greetings and welcome to the second week of Practicum 2. Hope that you enjoyed your first week of readings and ready to leap right into the second one. Wolves up. Yes, indeed. I'm recording this on a Friday. I don't have my red on Forte Friday because we woke up to colder weather in Jonesboro this morning. So I got the jacket on, the new teacher ed pullover jacket. Exceedingly comfortable, by the way, which has been great. My constant reminder, right? Make sure that you're reading the weekly email updates that I send out by mass email. Try to get those out Monday mornings pretty promptly, but every once in a while I will wait till Tuesday if common questions kind of permeate my inbox. But make sure you are checking that A-State email address daily, right? That's the single most important thing you can do from the standpoint of communication. So, jumping right in to Module 2. Our theme this week, the second week, is one of my favorite, and I will say also more demanding, hats that a literacy coach must wear. It's that of setting a vision, planning for, and serving adult learners through literacy coaching, right? This week, I would say also it's a little bit more of a philosophical one. It's a little bit more of a dispositional one. But the literacy coaching is not all working with teachers on their assessment or doing supervising or doing intervention work with kids. Sometimes literacy coaching is teaching teachers what to do, right? And this has its pitfalls, and I think the quicker you can flip it around and see the rewards and the positive interactions that can come with it, I think the more you'll like this hat. I mean, I don't know, maybe Module 2 will end up being one of your favorite ones. So, jumping right into McKenna and Walpole, so I have chapters 2 and 3 mixed in terms of the talking points. They lean on Terhoff's 7 Principles of Adult Learning from page 17 pretty heavily. And specifically Principle D, this is the one that really catches my eye, resonates with me the most. D, which involving adult learners in setting the program's goals and objectives, right? I think that is tremendously important. Setting goals and objectives as a group of teachers, as a program, involving the colleagues in setting those objectives, right? It's tremendously huge, and that right there can mean the difference between winning or losing the battle in terms of buy-in, a new concept. Figure 2.1 page 18, the basic cycle of adult learning. I think you might find that looks a little familiar in terms of sort of what we know about the learning process, but there are some differences. I am a huge fan of Knoll's list of key characteristics of adult learners. This is off page 19. Knoll's suggests that teaching teachers requires strategies that differ considerably from those we use with children. So in other words, the take-home message is don't teach teachers the same way you teach kids, or don't overly rely on your classroom teaching skills because, and I have this in bold in the talking points for a reason, literacy coaching requires a different playbook to be sustainable in the long run, right? When you work with kids in your classroom, obviously you're an adult, they're not, so there's just certain power differences that exist with that, right? But also, you're not teaching those kids for multiple years directly. Odds are you probably are working with them for 1 year. And if you're going to be a literacy coach for 3, 4, 5, 6 or more years, right, your work has to be sustainable in the long run, so you have to employ approaches in working with individuals that support and maintain those collegial relationships, and if not, grow them, right? From page 20, a sure recipe for destroying self-efficacy is arrogance on the part of the coach. I love that line. And self-efficacy requires the ability to make choices. So therefore, if you take away the ability of your colleagues and teachers you work with to make choices and have input, you're going to destroy their self-efficacy. And what do we talk about all the time, right? Wanting to support and build efficacy in our classrooms with our kids. So why would we turn away from that notion just simply because we're working with adults, right? Page 23 to 31, working with individuals versus small groups versus large groups. These are great sections, and really kind of captures the spirit of some of these even better. And this will certainly apply to literacy coaching, right? Because you will work one-on-one with colleagues, you'll work with small teams. Perhaps some of you work in schools that have a pod or team-based configuration, or a whole large building group, right? Jumping to chapter 3 then, within the school context, we encounter the author's term of technical solutions, right, which they believe are addressed through the current levels of knowledge that your colleagues and team may have, and adaptive solutions, which are those that cannot be implemented at current levels of expertise. So in other words, when you need technical solutions, your fellow teachers, your colleagues should have what you need and can get the job done. When you require adaptive solutions, that means that everybody must adapt in order to solve the problem, right? Page 35, 36. Unfortunately, raising achievement through leadership requires far more than educating the principal. I love that line. Characteristics of more and less effective principals, which is figure 3.2 on pages 36 to 38. I will say, before you judge your own principal too quickly based on this figure, take a moment, ponder the various directions every day in which he or she has pulled the vast array of items on his or her plate on a given day. In other words, the context of dealing with a principal is everything, and that context is an organic and changing thing on a day-to-day basis, right? Another reason that the partnering of principal and coach is vital, concerns the power needed to make a reform effort truly coherent. That's page 40. So you have to have a sustainable, vital, and active and collegial partnership with the administration as well as the teachers. Page 40 to 42, forging a strong partnership with the principal requires, these are some great items, right? Be helpful, communicate, become co-learners, discuss pressure, maintain confidences, and be creative. This list may very well be the cure for what concerns you in figure 3.2. So as you've gotten to this point on pages 40 to 42, take a second, ask yourself, was there something on that list of characteristics of more or less effective principals, figure 3.2, that bothered me? Wait a minute, the cure for what bothers me in figure 3.2 might just be there on page 40 to 42. In other words, the way in which you're working with the principal could be a direct reason why the work with the principal is struggling. Interesting. Tremendous implications for this, right? At the district level, page 44, become aware of district initiatives, including those that compete with the reform effort for resources that may be based on different orientations toward instruction. So in other words, if you're competing for resources or time or attention, it could very well be that there's something going on at the district level that you are in competition with. A-State apparel, A-State coffee mugs. I don't know, must be a theme. Issues of curriculum on pages 45 to 48 and issues of assessment 48 to 54. The take-home message from these is know your school and district curriculum and assessment practices. This is a very important take-home message because it's going to be a vital part of your final paper in the class. That backdrop of literacy coaching, right, the backdrop of curriculum and what's going on in district is the stage upon which literacy coaching plays. So understanding district level curriculum and district level assessment issues is a necessary part of a literacy coach's life. So huge contextual items out of our McKenna and Walpole reading. From Coaches in the Real World, Chapter 3, page 58, the value of and creating that strong case for a literacy team. This is one of the reasons that I really like this book and why I pitch this as more of a practitioner text. And in any graduate course, I love a theory text and I love a practicing text, right? Practice text, practitioner's text. They use the term community loosely because they want to allow you to as they say on page 62, to explore the concept in multiple and perhaps even novel ways. So in other words, they think that the term community is an adaptable term, and they want you as a practicing literacy coach to mold and shape that term and that concept to fit you better. Developing a vision statement, page 64, and your program examination and PD proposal paper consider the history of this, if possible, of your own school and district's mission or vision statement. And if you don't have one, why not, right? I believe that there is a rich and fascinating story behind an existing mission statement or vision statement, how it came to be, or if there is none, I think there's a story behind why there is none. Nevertheless, they've got good things to say at page 64 plus on developing that. From chapter 4, page 74, a needs assessment is an evaluation in which information about the current status of the school literacy program is collected and examined. This is mostly what you're doing in your program examination and PD proposal final paper, but you don't have the mandate to take action. One of the things that I used to have candidates in this course do in the traditional version of the program, when this was a 14-week course, was they actually would do a needs assessment with some of their teaching colleagues, and the complexity of that needs assessment would vary based on what was going on and what that background context of their district was, right? But page 75 plus, note the span and richness of program data that those can. Figure 4.3, page 79, it's a sample needs assessment survey, and like I said, I used to have the candidates do this, but these often can be something that can yield you very quick data and insight on how your colleagues feel about things going on in your school and your district. Page 82 plus, this is yet another clue that literacy coaching takes time to be effective, right? A 2-year plan grid. It truly takes 2 years sometimes in literacy coaching to really hit the ground running and start to generate buy-in to initiatives, or to get up to speed on what's been going on, right? So two really good sets of textbook readings that I think really touch on the notion of serving adult learners, right, in the professional development sense, but also working with adult colleagues within the context of a district. The Rainville-Jones article, I love this article, the extra flavor that it gives our course regarding the power and identities that we have in education as literacy professionals, right? In diverse learners, some of you may remember I mentioned Jim G's work. So they take situated identities from his work. Performing as a coach requires participants to engage themselves in particular ways that are most appropriate to the time, place, people, and practices that set the stage. That's page 440 to 441. So in other words, literacy coaches wear multiple hats, right? I'll say it often because it's true. I discuss this in my own case study work that I've done with literacy coaching, or with literacy coaches as well. They further quote G on page 441 of their article. G argued that such performances are enactments of situated identities, which he defined as different identities or social positions we enact and recognize in different settings, right? G's insight helps us understand how or why literacy coaches wear these different hats. It's great stuff. If you enjoy a good dramatic narrative unpacked in detail, look over the case study data. I think you'll be a big fan of Kate in this article, because of course this does come from a case study. The potential three potential lessons that they learned from Kate's work on page 447, and then also the implications of those lessons for literacy coaches, page 447, kind of their take-home points, the result of the case study. And then from their concluding section, page 447, this complex work also involves deep understanding about situational enactments and how one's position will affect what happens in particular contexts. There's a great implication with that, right? That as a literacy coach, your work is not going to resonate the same way every time with different groups and different situations. Context is everything, right? A little bit more flavor then for our concept of literacy coaching in the sense of a school leadership team from the Morgan and Klontz article. So members of the school leadership team that they look closely at work toward 3 key goals, page 345 of the article. And keep in mind as you read this article, that this article was meant. It's one that describes the evolution and nature of school leadership team meetings, right? So the focus of this article was the nature of the leadership team meetings themselves, right? Not so much the coaches, but or the people, but the nature of the meetings. Page 347. Most of the school leadership teams identified focused conversation as critically important to developing a common understanding and language as a team. And think about some of this, right, in the context of the McKenna and Walpole readings about, and then also about community from coaches in the real world. Page 349. In addition to providing time for focused conversation, we wanted schools to consider ways of communicating that would honor and value each member's voice, perspective, and experience. Remember, as you read this, by the way, right, when you see italic text in this article, that's directly out of the author's study data. So they're giving you essentially their raw data or their data elements side by side with their analysis. When an article does this and it's qualitative, I go nuts. I love it because I like to do that with my own data too. Page 352, school-based change is nonlinear and messy, so much so that the notion of looking to a single leader is decidedly limiting, given what we understand about large-scale systematic change. So there we go, right? Right there, further reinforcement of what both of our textbooks have said about having no one single leader when it comes to literacy coaching and larger scale efforts of change. Fascinating reading, and I think that one in particular fits in great with both of the textbook reads. So, don't forget to examine and consider the discussion posting handout and discussion posting general rubric, both of which are in our discussion resources in the sidebar. Keep in mind, right? Keep up your good strong pace that you've started with Blackboard posting. Post your reading response by Thursday night and have that peer response / participation done by Sunday night. If you haven't already viewed that Module 1 additional video on the program examination PD proposal first half, don't wait any longer to do so because you want to get thinking about that right away. And I have another video here with the second module to further support your writing on that first paper, and will also with Module 3 as well. So make sure you keep reaching out by your A-State email with thoughts and questions, especially as you're finding fascinations in the reading and what it makes you think. I love that, especially as you're locking in the logistics of meeting with that literacy professional, hopefully getting started this week or next week, or questions about anything else. And we'll see you in Module 3.